So, I just got done watching the Angry Video Game Nerd movie. And, I took the liberty of reading several reviews beforehand, and, my expectations were pretty high because the reception from most critics, at least professional critics, seems to be pretty positive so far. I mean, there's been criticism of the film, but one thing I noted that was very interesting is that it seems that people who are at least somewhat critical of the film are going really, really out of their way to, try to, express their admiration for James as to why their criticism of this film was in no way a detraction of his character or his person or anything like that. And, I think something like that should be obvious because, filmmaking is a career. It's not a reflection of our character. It doesn't prove that we're unethical if we're successful or failures. I mean, all it does is it proves whether or not we're good or bad filmmakers. And for now, at least in the terms of cinema, it seems like James Rolfe is very, very bad at what he does. That doesn't mean he's a bad guy. I mean, you don't have to worry about, being so politically correct. I mean, I'm sure he's a nice guy and everything, but, you can be a good guy and still make a shitty movie. And this movie was terrible. It was absolute dog shit. And it's ironic that a movie that chronicles one of the worst games ever made, allegedly, I mean, I dispute that, turns out to be one of the worst movies ever made. I mean, I seriously think I had more fun and more laughs watching Leonard Part 6 and, Evan Almighty. I mean, I have to really, really scrape at the bottom of the barrel. I'm thinking about those gag movies like Meet the Spartans. I think I had more fun watching those movies than I did watching that movie, than I did watching James' movie. And it's interesting because James' movie, the Angry Video Game Nerd movie, it has many of the same problems as those spoof movies. Epic Movie, Date Movie, Meet the Spartans. The problem is that there's no actual jokes. The writing relies purely on gags and pop culture references, and it relies on a bunch of arcane references that nobody except for the most hardcore fan would even be able to pick up on to begin with. Those aren't jokes. I mean, that's just they're saying, hey, remember this? Remember when that was funny? Remember when I talked about that? I'm referencing it again. And he does that a lot. He doesn't actually tell too many jokes. He just recycles a lot of the things he did in his previous movie, like the Top Gun scene when he's trying to land the plane and everything. And it was funny the first time, but it just doesn't pan out very well in a movie that felt like it was almost 3 hours long. This movie was way too long, and what we're used to with the Angry Video Game Nerd is seeing his films in short bouts, episodic films, usually nothing longer than 15 minutes. And that's good because after that, his shtick just gets old. I mean, you can only handle so much puerile swearing before you just start to roll your eyes and just want to do something else. And that's all I wanted to do while watching this film was do something else. I mean, I actually watched it for free. It was streaming online, and I'm glad that I saved my money. And maybe the thing is that I hope that after this film he will retire the Angry Video Game Nerd character. I've had the impression for a while that that's something he's wanted to do because the character, the Angry Video Game Nerd character, really is a one-trick pony. I mean, he's someone who apparently was traumatized by a bunch of shitty games when he was a kid. But the reason why those old episodes were funny is because they centered around games that he actually really did play and really did have to suffer through when he was a kid. And I mean, it makes sense considering the generation he's from. He's 34 years old. I'm about the same age. Games like The Karate Kid, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I mean, a lot of us in that generation can relate to that, and that's what kind of makes it funny. But when you do something when you talk about a game that you really haven't played extensively, and you really don't have very strong of an opinion about, then it's not going to seem as funny. It's going to seem contrived and forced. And, E.T. came out before he was born, or right when he was born or something, so any experience that he likely had with it was probably retrospectively as a young adult or a young man. I mean, like, he probably didn't have very high expectations to begin with, because, you know, how could he have had high expectations? Because he was playing Atari in an era when the Super Nintendo or Sony PlayStation was out. So, of course, the games are going to seem like shit in comparison based on, like, the modern-day games at the time. But it's just, I think, you know, like, I felt James was doing a good thing when he tried to create, like, new characters like Bored James, like the Bullshit Man. But, you know, he had to go back to the angry video game nerd, but I feel that he felt like he was forced to do that due to the popularity of it. And it's really, it's almost like he's taken a strainer. He took the angry video game nerd character, put it in the strainer, then strained out all the fun and the humor from it. And all that's left is a bunch of forced, puerile, like, shit jokes. And, you know, I won't criticize the film for, like, you know, its special effects or, like, its cast or anything like that. I mean, obviously, you can't say that Tom Cruise had to pass on this film due to scheduling conflict. It had a budget of approximately $500,000 or so. But, you know, there was a lot of really poor sets in the film. I mean, there was so much green screen. I mean, there was green screen even in scenes where it didn't feel like it was necessary. Like, I remember, like, one of the antagonists, this blonde girl, she was standing in a casino and they were, like, playing behind the casino, but, you know, you could tell it was a green screen, but what was the point of that? Why not just film the scene where all the characters are in the casino together? So it just looked really, really cheap. And it's kind of funny because, you know, like, James is a big fan of, like, horror films. He's going to actually star in, like, a remake of Plan 9. I'm really excited about that because, you know, those movies are films that you can, like, laugh at because, you know, they're so bad that they're good. But it's funny because, you know, that's actually what I was reminded of when I saw, like, that when I actually saw this film, just based on how cheap the sets looked. But yeah, wasn't a very good movie, and people don't need to be afraid to criticize it or anything. I mean, like, he expects money from you. He expects you to pay for this film, so we should expect a quality film to begin with. Although, you know, I didn't pay for it, so I guess I have nothing to complain about. But I'm just saying, you guys who are watching it, you deserve better than this film, and you should demand it. You should say that, don't insult my intelligence by pretending like this kind of stuff qualifies as humor. Don't make me out to be some kind of fool, some kind of, like, pet monkey that's trained to laugh at anything you do just because, you know, I'm a fan of your previous work or anything like that. And I can only imagine at the premiere how many forced laughs and forced, like, applause that probably occurred just for the sake of not hurting James' feelings or anything. But, you know, he's a big boy, and, you know, one thing people learn in life is that humility can go a long way. I mean, you have assholes like Phil Fish, and, you know, his game sucks, but, you know, he'll never accept any kind of criticism, so it's safe to say any subsequent work that he involves himself with will likely be shit as well. So, yeah, don't see this film. I mean, if you want to, like, if you're feeling nostalgic for any kind of angry video game nerd, like, episodes, I say just watch his old stuff again. I mean, because, you know, it's pretty much the same experience since he recycles most of the jokes from his old episodes to begin with. And, yeah, don't see this movie.